Good morning, everybody. Thought I would cover a few things here. And you all know how much Mike and I love history. So after I cover this letter, I'm going to get into some history, old Watchtower history that many of us may not know about, which I found fascinating. Some of it I knew about, some of it I did not. All right, we have an announcement to the elders and congregation dated May 16th, 2020 for the congregation. Virtual literature carts. We recently learned that some publishers are using virtual literature carts in their ministry. We appreciate that the use of such carts is well intentioned. However, the carts are not provided by the faithful and discreet slave. In addition, the carts could be altered so that they direct people to websites that contain harmful content. I'm thinking apostate websites. Thus, such carts should not be used. Thank you for your fine spirit of cooperation in this matter. You know, the thing is we see so many witnesses preaching in social media so that they can still be getting their time during this COVID lockdown. And in fact, someone posted a picture that they had taken of a JW house. Some houses, like in England, like the front door is like right there by the sidewalk. But they have a picture of the person's front door and a literature cart right there, and I mean it's just a few feet from the sidewalk. So my goodness, they're desperate, really desperate. Point number 2. Easing of governmental COVID restrictions. When the authorities remove restrictions on certain activities, you will need to consider prayerfully how this will affect your daily life. Generally, we should be more cautious than the secular authorities and our neighbors who are often eager to resume activities for economic reasons. Each family head must decide the wisest course for his household. Personal circumstances vary. Therefore, what may be a prudent decision for one family may be unwise for another. What may be safe in one area may be unsafe in another. To the extent possible, it may be best to stay at home. However, if you must leave your home, please continue applying the basic principles of health and safety, such as frequent hand washing, physical distancing, wearing a face covering, and limiting physical contact with older and high-risk persons. If you experience cold or flu-like symptoms, it would be best to stay home and notify your health care provider. Use of kingdom halls. Regardless of direction from secular authorities, the kingdom hall should not be used for any meetings until further direction is received from the branch office. Number 4, participation in the public ministry. All forms of the public ministry, including the door-to-door work and any form of public witnessing, should be suspended until further direction is received from the branch office. For the attention of all elders. This is to the elders. Congregation isn't going to see this. Modest use of electronic tools. In many lands, elders are using video conferencing tools effectively to hold weekly meetings, to arrange for field service, and to shepherd publishers. As a kind reminder, elders should take care not to promote electronic tools in ways that go beyond what has been directed by the organization. And we know YouTube, they have a lot of Kingdom Halls streaming the meetings to YouTube. We commend you for your hard work in caring for the publishers entrusted to your care. Number 2, easing of governmental COVID-19 restrictions. The announcement for the congregation is intended to prompt family heads to consider prayerfully how to continue protecting their household while assisting publishers. Elders must be cautious not to establish or to enforce rules too late. I mean, we've been hearing of all kinds of things elders are doing, and we know they weren't directed to do so. Number 3, use of kingdom halls. Regardless of direction from secular authorities, the kingdom hall should not be used for any meetings until further direction is received from the branch office. This applies even if the secular authorities begin to ease certain restrictions in the near future. Adjustments by the secular authorities do not automatically mean there are adjustments to theocratic activities. at this time, no additional theocratic activities are being resumed. If the body of elders believe there is an exceptional need to use the Kingdom Hall, such as for judicial committee, a funeral, or a wedding, 2 elders should call the service department and explain the recommendation of the body of elders. A few thoughts on this. I know here in New Mexico, the governor has lifted some of the restrictions, and she is allowing churches to have meetings again. And, you know, masses, because we live in a high Catholic area. But it's interesting, you know, because we're hearing that some of the elders are complaining that because they only had 3 months worth of funds to pay the Kingdom Hall bills in their accounts, you know, since they sent everything to Watchtower, that they're running out of money and they don't know if they'll be able to pay the utilities. So, you know, what is going to happen? Are we going to see more of a Kingdom Hall sell-off? We'll have to wait and see. Now, what's interesting is we've also heard from several. In fact, we had a phone call last weekend. Mike talked to the person, and they were asking, you know, is this what they're doing now? And it was like a Skype meeting, conference call to where there was several members for a judicial hearing. And we're hearing that they're doing judicial hearings now by use of Skype or, you know, one of these other video conferencing, and bringing all these, you know, witnesses in, some even from different states, and told them, record it. There are several programs for video recording, you know, your screen recording, Skype, any of those video conferencing, record it. Record it. Because if this is going to be done, and especially if they are there on a witch hunt, record them. Record them. Number 4, baptisms. Those performing baptism should take necessary precautions in accord with guidelines provided by the secular authorities to reduce the spread of COVID-19. Now, you saw a clip of a child being baptized where the one elder was there and the kid was baptized in the bathtub. So they still have to get those baptisms, you know. For follow-through by the coordinator of the body of elders, announcement for the congregation, ensure that the announcements for the congregation are read at the next midweek and weekend meetings. So that is that letter that we got. Now, to the history part, old history. Mike and I, in our last video, we had talked about the lecture, Roots, Shoots, and Those in Cahoots. And it was like an hour and a half long. And we were watching it. And we caught some things that we did not catch the first couple of times we watched that. Now, in this lecture, he brings up Rutherford and the war bonds. And it's like, okay, I don't remember if I remember ever hearing about that. So I started doing a Google search, you know, because we can do that. Jehovah's Witnesses won't do this, but we can. And if you just put in Rutherford and war bonds, oh my goodness, a whole bunch of stuff comes up. Several websites, a lot of XJW websites. Now, what is interesting is I did find one website. It's called jwdivorces.bravehost.com, and I'm going to put the link down below to this. And, you know, I always check things out. I use their references. This is why I love these websites that use references, because then I can go check it out myself, because I'm a skeptic. You know, at this point, I don't know what I believe, and I don't know if I even believe, you know, some of the stuff I'm hearing unless I go check it out. So anyway, the war bonds, Liberty bonds, it came up to an Anton Kroeber, K-O-E-R-B-E-R. And oh my goodness, this Anton, they give a little bit of history about this. This Anton Kroeber, he had been a pilgrim, aka pioneer. That's what they called him back there, pilgrim, coal porters. And he was later at the Watchtower headquarters as a Bethelite. And like I said, there is a lot of information here. Maybe another rabbit hole if you guys like to dig. So it says, Anton Adam Kroeber concentrated on becoming a multimillionaire through his many real estate ventures. Then, according to Gordon Pollock, whom was another former once prominent Watchtower Bethelite and pilgrim, Anton Kroeber sent a $2,000 donation to the Dawn Bible Students Associations, along with Kroeber's request for a private meeting with the trustees. Interestingly, in 1952, soon after Anton Kroeber's courtship was rebuffed by the Dawn Bible Students Association because he's trying to get in with the splinter group, the Dawn Bible Students. The once prominent Watchtower Bethelite and pilgrim drove straight to Brooklyn to Watchtower headquarters. There, Kroeber requested an audience with the director of the service department, T.J. Sullivan. Knowing Anton Kroeber and not wanting to speak or deal with him, Sullivan told Bill Setner to go down to the 8th floor lobby and tell Kroeber that he would not be granted an appointment as a pioneer. Given Kroeber's many years having been disfellowshipped, because they disfellowshipped him, kicked him out, and Kroeber's only recent reinstatement, Anton Kroeber refused to accept the young Bethelite's second-handed answer, telling Setner that he would continue to pursue the matter up the chain of command. Kroeber then gave Setner a parting $10 handshake, a week's take-home pay for many people in 1952. Setner went back upstairs and told Sullivan what had happened, and that Kroeber wanted to speak with someone with more authority. Hugh McMillan went back down with Bill Setner. That second time, Mac gave Kroeber a thorough chewing out for seeking a title and sent the multimillionaire packing. Bill Setner relates that only a day or two later, when he entered the Bethel dining room for dinner, there sat Anton Kroeber next to President Nathan Knorr at the head table. After dinner, Setner again saw Kroeber in the lobby. Kroeber called Setner over to the lobby's front window and pointed to a brand new Cadillac parked at the curb. Kroeber told Setner that he had just gifted that new Cadillac to Watchtower President Nathan Knorr. Kroeber added that Knorr could have another Cadillac anytime as he so desired. Now, the reason I bring this up, because this shows the politicking that went on at headquarters. And if you've got money, you can get the position. Now, what's interesting is about halfway through this article, in blue, President Nathan Knorr even appointed Anton Kroeber to be one of the secretive and limited number of shareholders in the Watchtower Bible Tract Society of Pennsylvania, a privilege reserved for only the elite of anointed Jehovah's Witnesses. We can nearly guarantee readers that Anton Kroeber did not purchase this series of privileges with one or even two Cadillacs. The first Cadillac that Kroeber gifted to Nathan Knorr was merely a down payment. And like I said, the reason I bring this guy up is because he is mentioned in Watchtower literature. And of course, they never mentioned, that he was disfellowshipped and all the bad stuff. So getting back to him, giving Knorr a Cadillac for a down payment. Anton Kroeber died in November 1967 at the age of 75 years old. Probably after the reading of Kroeber's will, President Nathan Knorr directed that Kroeber's biography be published in the cult's main Watchtower magazine. The May 15th, 1968 issue contained the typically exaggerated biographical material. One glaring error was the portrayal of Watchtower Pilgrim General William P. Hall, essentially as being Kroeber's sidekick, as well as not even getting the name correct of one of the Watchtower Society's most important historic figures. This is the 1968 Watchtower. May 15th, 1968. On page 313, happiness results from making the most of one's talents. Oh boy, if that isn't a loaded title. The life story of Anton Kroeber as told by his friends. It's all about the money. Over on page 314, like I said, this gives, my goodness, it's clear over to page 318. So they gave him a 5-page life story. But I thought this was interesting. On page 314, the second paragraph. Particularly since the age of 14 was he a faithful reader of the Bible. By the age of 17 he quit his Lutheran church, disillusioned. But he had not lost faith in God, in God's word, nor in the rightness of Bible principles. For about 4 years he attended various church services and even interested himself in a fraternal order, searching for God if he might find him. Interested himself in a fraternal order. To me, that glares. He became probably a Freemason. But interested himself in a fraternal order, that tells me he was a member of a fraternal order. Like I said, probably Freemason. Now going on this website, it says, as proven on page 1 of this section, many of the Washington, D.C. area Bible students also were Freemasons. We found it particularly interesting that Kroeber's Watchtower biography mentions the very sentence preceding the sentence that mentions Kroeber's initial contact with Bible students, that Kroeber previously had interested himself in a fraternal order. Like I said, I checked it out myself. I just read it right from the Watchtower. Okay, then there's a note here. Fellow researchers should take a look at the parents of Rose Kroeber. If such doesn't explain the following, then take a look at Kroeber's Freemason connections. Anton was baptized in West Virginia in 1913, where he worked for a B&O Railroad, was head of dining car operations for the Balt Pit Run in February 1916, when he married Rose Steinley from Baltimore. After marrying Rose, promoted to same position for Balt New York Run in May 1916. By February 1917, Kroeber is living in D.C., working in the insurance business, and is elected to the Board of Trade on Liberty Bond Committee in April 1918. Nothing like having powerful friends or relatives. And this is where, when I was looking for the war bonds, Liberty bonds, that's why this page came up. He was on the Liberty Bond Committee in April 1918. Now what's interesting is Watchtower mentions Kroeber again. This is the 1993 Watchtower. September 15th, 1993, page 28. Persevere in the pioneer service. And like I mentioned before, this Anton Kroeber, his history was sanitized in the biography that was in the Watchtower. And that's what's interesting about this. Page 30, treasure your privilege of service. The third paragraph. To illustrate, Anton Kroeber was privileged to represent kingdom interests to government officials in Washington, D.C. He served as a pioneer for some time and was a circuit overseer in the 1950s. Some of his former business associates once approached him with a proposition that would enable him to clear $1 million for himself. To do so, however, it would have been necessary for him to devote all his time to business affairs for about a year. He already had money. So of course it was easy for him to give it up. My goodness. Now, getting into some of the financial surprising things. Now, in digging through Beezilla, trying to find some of this information, I came across an article in the Brooklyn Daily Eagle Sun dated June 23rd, 1918. And The name of the article is Conviction Deals Death Blow to Sect Founded by Russell. And it's about Rutherford and the 7 others that were sentenced to 20 years in prison for sedition and espionage. But it's interesting because subheading, Cult Had Strange Career, and it's talking about the founder, C.T. Russell, Pastor Russell. But I found this subheading interesting. Thousands parted with their dollars. It sounds ridiculous, but it persuaded thousands of sincere people to part with their earthly belongings. How many millions Charles Taze Russell accumulated before his death on October 31st, 1916 will probably never be known. The maze of interlocking property-holding corporations. I find that incredibly interesting because, Mike and I have been talking about Watchtower and their corporations, and we thought it was just a modern thing. No, it went back to Russell's day. I'll read that again. The maze of interlocking property-holding corporations which he created was so shrewdly organized that some of Pittsburgh's wiliest lawyers were unable to get at the facts when they sought to make him pay the alimony which the courts had awarded to his wife. Occasionally they got track of some single big deal as a transfer. Since this is a newspaper scan, it's a little bit blurry. Looks like $317,000 worth of property to the Watchtower Bible Tract Society, which reference to which the Pennsylvania courts declared the purpose of this whole transaction was to deprive his wife of her dowry rights and was a fraud on her. It was Russell's trouble with his wife that broke up his business in Pittsburgh and persuaded him to move to Brooklyn. I thought the Proclaimer's book said it was Holy Spirit that guided them to move to Brooklyn. Right. She obtained a separation on the ground of cruel and inhuman treatment in 1907 after a bitter fight in which Pastor Russell exhausted every legal chicanery and every possible appeal that money could buy. The evidence in the case and the remarks about the pastor embodied in the decisions of the various courts are highly sensational, and the head of the Millennial Dawn sect was never able to live them down. But see, Watchtower has been able to hide all of that history now. It didn't happen. Russell's marvelous propaganda. But the success of his propaganda was marvelous. He sent representatives into every county of the United States who worked with particular success among the ignorant people living in farming communities. He published newspapers in 20 different languages and paid to have the so-called sermons published in thousands of newspapers here and abroad. See, we always thought, well, the newspapers always printed his sermons because they were so good. No, he paid to have those put in the newspapers. Now, under that, in this newspaper article, there is another subheading. Was confident of success in Brooklyn. I'm going to read that. At about the time Pastor Russell gave out an interview in which he discussed his prospects in Brooklyn, he said, "Fortunately, I'm not only a minister of the gospel, but an editor as well. Then, too, I know a little something about business. We expect to do well here. There are in the territory around Brooklyn something like 15 million people, very, very intelligent people, and we feel that we can sell our books and pamphlets more readily from this point than from Pittsburgh. And believe me, we are doing it all for the Lord." Yeah, right. Has nothing to do with it. Little bit of money has nothing to do with it. These labors for the Lord ran into constantly increasing figures. According to sworn evidence given by W.E. Van Amberg, The Russellite treasurer, the propaganda expenditures of the Watchtower Bible Tract Society in 1912 totaled, looks like $271,711, and the receipts exceeded that amount. The investments which Pastor Russell made in various corporations such as coal mine companies, real estate ventures, asphalt companies, and others were transferred to various dummy corporations, among them the United States Investment Company, capitalized at, looks like $1,000, with Charles Taze Russell holding, looks like $990 worth of the stock, or maybe 99%. Like I said, it's an old scan, old paper, and a little bit blurry. He maintained his control over the Watchtower Bible Tract Society, to which he transferred much of his property in an endeavor to escape paying alimony by a special device known as voting shares. Every time he gave something to the society, he exacted voting shares, in return thus maintaining absolute control over the organization. My goodness, like I said, very interesting article. It also mentions towards the end that he lost a suit against the Eagle Herald, and if I remember correctly, it was something to do with libel. So, like I said, I'm going to put the link down below to this article. It's quite lengthy. I would say it's at least like a half a newspaper page, and some interesting stuff in there that Jehovah's Witnesses just don't know. But I wanted to mention something else that we had heard about. In 1915, Russell started getting a little nervous about donations and money coming into Watchtower. So I just want to read something that was actually in the Watchtower. The 1915 Watchtower, January 1st. The reprint page is 5602. Regular page 4-5. But some may say, did we not read between the lines in the Society's annual report that the financial streams were drying up? And have we not heard that 13 dramas have been withdrawn, representing 50 exhibitions per day, explanatory of the divine plan of the ages? And does this not indicate that God's time has come for closing down the work? Now, I just want to mention that the Society has always said how great the photodrama of creation did and how many millions of people have seen it. And they were always bragging about this. But yet, back in 1915, money was drying up, and exhibitions of the photodrama of creation were being canceled. I'll go on. Our reply is that these things are so, but that we have a reason to surmise that God intends to send us in His own way further financial support, that His message may go forth with great force throughout the whole world. With this in view, we are having all the dramas overhauled and put into good order, anticipating that the funds to operate them will be in our hands shortly. So, were they expecting a lot of money from the gold mine, or were they making a deal with the Rothschilds? Now, we actually heard about this from a friend of ours, Truth Shark, years ago, several years ago. And it happens to deal with a gold mine in California. Now, many don't know about the gold mine. Soda Lake. Now, I've got a bond volume here of the reprints of the old original Watchtowers. May 1st, 1915. On the PDF, it is page 83. On the reprint page, it is 5682, and it is under the subheading Co-Laboring with Our God. Towards the end of the second paragraph in the left-hand column. Long ago, we announced that when the funds would cease, the activities of the society would cease proportionately, and that as the funds increased, the society's activities would be enlarged. This program has been greatly blessed of the Lord, and we believe is in full accord with His will. Now they're talking about the photodrome of creation. That program. We have no thought of changing it in any degree. Last year was the most wonderful one in our experience. The gospel message by printed page and orally, and by the drama, photodrome of creation, witnessed the gospel of the kingdom nigh at hand to millions of people all over the earth. We thank God for the blessed privilege enjoyed and the activities permitted in His service on behalf of thousands of His consecrated people in every land, co-laboring with the society and laboring either directly or indirectly under its auspices. Now it's interesting, the name of the article is Co-Laboring with God, but yet this is co-laboring with the society. When making our last annual report, we expressed the thought that many of the Lord's people have already invested what money they possessed, and that we would thus expect donations to be smaller than heretofore, and that we would be obliged to discontinue some of the dramas. Later, we announced bright prospects of a full resumption. We did not tell the basis of this expectation, but will now explain. Their explanation is great. Some brethren informed us that they have believed they were possessed of a rich gold-bearing property, that all of its proceeds were consecrated to the Lord's service, that ere long we might expect money from them in good supply, but that their names were to be kept secret. Their expectations, which were highly appreciated, were not realized. The expectation had a beneficial effect, however, in that it encouraged us to keep the work up to a high notch of speed and efficiency in every direction until the present time. Now we have gone our limit. We must conclude that it is the Lord's will that our activities be greatly curtailed in order to bring down the expenses to a parity with the income. So then it makes you wonder, many of us who have done research, we know that they apparently got money from the Rothschilds and some of those elite. So is this when they got it? I don't know. But they're talking about this gold mine, the Soda Lake gold mine in California. Now, when he got on the train and started going cross country giving lectures, you know, his last train ride right before he died, he went out to California. He was headed out to California. Is this why? Makes you wonder. Makes you wonder. Now, I know, too much information, but the thing is this all tied in all together, because when you start doing the research and the finances and all their corporations and Liberty bonds, would Jehovah's Witnesses be shocked to learn about the Liberty bonds? Because we were always told they were strict neutrality, even when it came to World War I. Like I said, I've got the reprint of the Watchtower here. On the reprint, the bottom of the page is 6257. At the top, it's 152, 153. This is the May 15th, 1918 Watchtower. Under the heading, "The Dust of His Feet," First column, second paragraph. Now remember, Rutherford and 7 others had been in prison for sedition and espionage. Our attitude on the war, Red Cross, Liberty Bonds, etc. has been misunderstood by many people. Few persons do much thinking in war times, and what little they do is mostly in line with their natural emotions. We cannot therefore expect much calm and dispassionate thinking now from the worldly. Therefore, in our honest effort to render our proper dues to the government under which we are privileged to live, we should be doubly careful not to speak evil of dignitaries, nor to do anything which would avoidably embarrass them in the solution of their weighty problems. Subheading, our statement to the press. Statements have been recently made to several newspapers which requested an expression from us, but the statements, if printed at all, have been so garbled as to be well nigh incoherent. We therefore print below in full a statement prepared by the president of our association for the Brooklyn Eagle at its request. On my return to Brooklyn, this is Rutherford, quotation marks. On my return to Brooklyn, I learned of the unpleasant occurrence at the Brooklyn Tabernacle last Sunday, April 28th. Mr. W.T. Baker was in the pulpit, and at the conclusion of his discourse, a request was brought to the platform that the congregation hear a speech by someone on their Liberty Bonds. Mr. Baker put the matter to a vote, and the majority voted the negative. I am sure this action was not intended as any reflection on the government, nor to be taken as against the Liberty loan. Those who worship at the tabernacle believe in worshiping the Lord in spirit and truth. Okay, and I'm going to skip some of this. Down to the second paragraph at the bottom of the first column. The people of our association are not against the government, nor against the Liberty loan. Our thought is that the Liberty loan is not a religious question, but purely one pertaining to the affairs of the government, and that each person should be left to the free exercise of his individual conscience as to whether he will or will not purchase Liberty bonds. Our views are very well expressed in a statement given to the public press some weeks ago as follows. The International Bible Students Association is not against the Liberty loan. Many of its members have bought and hold Liberty bonds. Some have not money with which to buy. Now, they talk about how those at Bethel, didn't have that much money, and that every Christian gladly obeys the law of the United States and has stood for religious liberty and freedom. So it's basically a conscience matter if you want to buy these war bonds. Second column, fourth paragraph. Some members of the Brooklyn Tabernacle congregation had previously purchased Liberty bonds. Doubtless all had been personally solicited before that time. They are surrounded on all hands by opportunities to purchase, and to them it seemed inappropriate to transact business in the church on Sunday. There are 6 days in the week for the transaction of business, and Sunday is regarded by them as a day for sacred worship of the Lord. It is to be regretted that one representing the public press should so disgrace himself as publicly to encourage mob violence against inoffensive people. It seems that anyone wearing the uniform of the United States Army would have more respect for that uniform and for law and order than to disturb the peace by loud and uncouth language and encouraging mob violence. We cannot believe that any responsible person in the government would approve of such action. As to the members of the Bethel home, it is well known that those who labor there receive merely their food and lodging and a small allowance for incidental expenses. This was thoroughly aired in the Brooklyn Eagle libel case, as the record shows. At that time, the amount received was only $10 per month, which since on account of increased costs of necessities is now $15 per month. The opening of the third Liberty Loan campaign A very elegant gentleman of the borough of Brooklyn called on me with references to soliciting the members of the Bethel home to buy bonds. I invited him to see each one of them personally. Members of our association who have some personal means have bought Liberty bonds, including tabernacle workers who are paying 25% of their monthly allowance to purchase a bond. We do not believe the government would expect anyone to purchase bonds who receives barely enough for his daily expenses. The picketing of the Bethel home on last Sunday morning and accosting everyone who passed out and demanding that they buy Liberty bonds seems to be a very uncalled for and unusual thing. When anyone authorized to solicit for bonds can have free access to the Bethel home to interview any person there at any reasonable hour during the day or evening. As above stated, a gentleman had called for that purpose some days ago. Okay? Now the reason I read that is because Watchtower spins it a little bit different later. This is also on the jw.org website. That's where I originally found it, but I grabbed the hard copy because you can never trust their digital copies. This is the 1955 Watchtower. April 15th, page 236, Modern History of Jehovah's Witnesses. When you go over to page 237, the last paragraph on the first column, and it's talking about when Rutherford and the 7 others were arrested. On May 7th, 1918, warrants were issued by the United States District Court for the Eastern District of New York to arrest 8 brothers connected with the Society's management and editorial committee. It gives the names. And this says that their charges were unlawfully and feloniously did conspire, combine, confederate, and agree together and with divers other persons to the said grand jurors unknown to commit a certain offense against the United States of America, to wit, the offense of unlawfully, feloniously, and willfully causing insubordination, disloyalty, and refusal of duty in the military and naval forces of the United States of America when the United States was at war. Now, there are some articles from that time period where they were not saying you couldn't be in the military. Now, the reason I bring this up is because over in the second column, the last paragraph on that page, it says, Kingdom news spread around. Some may go to jail. J.F. Rutherford and some of his colleagues are likely to pass their summer months in a villa where they will be protected from mobs who insult them by asking them to buy Liberty bonds. So that's in reference to what I just read in the Watchtower about some picketing the Bethel to buy Liberty bonds. But they were already able to buy Liberty bonds. But I find that interesting. Now, one more thing. Now over here on the June 1st, 1918 Watchtower, on the reprints it is page 62-68, and on the regular pages it's 168-169. The second paragraph in the first column. A Christian might not have been able conscientiously to engage in the military activities of a country offering only combatant service. See, a Christian might not have been able conscientiously. It was a conscience matter. Later, when the opportunity is enlarged so that they may choose some good works, such as the hospital ambulance service, he may with a free conscience take such service. A Christian to whom may have been presented the perverted viewpoint that the Red Cross work is only the aiding of that killing which is against his conscience cannot help the Red Cross. Then he gains the broader viewpoint that the Red Cross is the embodiment of helping the helpless, and he finds himself able and willing to help the Red Cross according to ability and opportunity. A Christian unwilling to kill may have been conscientiously unable to buy government bonds Later, he considers what great blessings he has received under his government and realizes that the nation is in trouble and facing danger to its liberty, and he feels himself conscientiously able to lend some money to the country just as he would lend to a friend in distress. So there again, Liberty bonds and military service was a conscience matter. So, my goodness, a lot of information, and a little bit here and there if anybody wants to investigate any of this further. It is a huge rabbit hole that goes in every direction, and I know this was a lot of information. So thank you so much for watching, and you all have a wonderful day. Bye.